The Bedford Truck Story. In the early 1950s, the world was recovering from the devastation of World War II. Nations were rebuilding, economies were re-establishing, and industries were ramping up production. Among those that stood at the forefront of this reconstruction was the automotive industry. In the UK, a company by the name of Bedford Vehicles, a subsidiary of General Motors, would go on to change the landscape of transportation in a way that would affect everything from logistics to individual businesses for decades. The Bedford truck, with its rugged design and dependable performance, was born out of necessity. Following the war, Britain's infrastructure needed modernization. Roads were often in poor condition, and the demand for goods, particularly after rationing, had risen. The Bedford truck was the answer to this challenge, a reliable and affordable solution that would go on to dominate Britain's roads for much of the 20th century. It was in 1930 that the first Bedford vehicles were introduced to the market, though it wasn't until the early 1950s that the Bedford truck truly began to make a mark. These trucks were well suited for the time, powered by sturdy engines designed for load-bearing, and with a simple but functional aesthetic, they could handle the challenges of both urban environments and rural roads. The trucks were designed for various purposes, including deliveries, long-distance hauls, and local transport. This versatility was one of the key reasons why Bedford trucks gained such widespread use across Britain and beyond. In a small town in northern England, there lived a man named George Ashton, who had spent most of his life working in a coal mine. However, after the mine closed in the late 1950s, George was faced with a challenge. How would he support his family? Rather than looking for work in another industry, George took a risk. He decided to purchase a used Bedford truck, thinking it would allow him to start his own business in the growing field of local deliveries. In the early days of his new venture, George found himself waking before dawn to load his Bedford with goods ranging from fresh produce to household items, delivering them to local shops and homes. The truck quickly proved to be a reliable asset. It was a 1956 Bedford TK, a model known for its power and ease of maintenance. It was sturdy, even in the worst of weather, and could carry heavy loads without breaking a sweat. As his business grew, George expanded his fleet, purchasing 2 more Bedford trucks, and soon he was employing a small team of drivers. For George, the Bedford trucks symbolized more than just a business opportunity. They represented the chance to rebuild. They allowed him to create something for his family, something that could outlast the difficulties of post-war Britain. But it wasn't just about reliability. George was inspired by the truck's simplicity. They didn't have fancy features or complicated designs, just basic functionality, and that was all he needed. As time passed, the Bedford brand evolved and new models were introduced. Among these was the Bedford CA, which was a more compact version aimed at the light van market. This model proved to be popular with small business owners who needed an affordable and dependable vehicle for deliveries in crowded urban areas. By the 1960s, the Bedford truck was synonymous with British industry. One particular Bedford truck, a 1961 Bedford TJ, became legendary in the town of Ashton. Owned by a local man named Albert Alfie Sykes, the TJ was known throughout the community for its resilience. Alfie had worked as a mechanic and, like many people of his generation, had a natural affinity for keeping his truck in perfect condition. Over the years, Alfie had used his Bedford TJ to help local farmers transport livestock, pick up materials for construction sites, and even carry donated goods to families in need during the winter months. But what made Alfie's truck truly famous was its appearance at the annual charity parade. For over a decade, Alfie had decorated his Bedford TJ with festive lights, flowers, and even a small wooden stage on the back. The truck became a symbol of community pride. Every year, the parade participants would gather around Alfie's Bedford, admiring its unique design and the amount of care that went into keeping the truck in such perfect condition. It wasn't just a truck to the people of Ashton. It was a part of their local culture, and it represented the strength and unity of the community. By the 1970s, Bedford trucks were found in cities across the UK and in many parts of the world. They were exported to countries in Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia, where they played an essential role in the development of these nations' transportation infrastructures. In countries where rough roads and harsh climates were a daily challenge, The Bedford truck became the go-to choice for businesses, farmers, and governments.